My colleagues, just let me know that we can start. And I would like to welcome all of us today here at a seminar, at a video seminar, Russia and Yemen Security in the Gulf and the Red Sea region. My name is Ruslan Mamedov, and I'm a program manager at the Russian International Affairs Council. Last month at the Institute of Oriental Studies, Russian Academy of Sciences, we had the presentation of a book, 90 Years of Yemen-Russia Relations, authored by His Excellency Ambassador of the Republic of Yemen to the Russian Federation, Ahmed Salem Al-WAHISHI. This book is an important point in academic and analytical life we have in Russia. The book has been published in Russian and Arabic languages, as far as I know, and we have an opportunity to discuss it today in another language, in English. The event is broadcasted and streamed on the RIAC website, our YouTube channel, and via the Facebook page online. So if you have any questions, and I'm speaking to our participants today who are looking our event via Facebook or YouTube. So please, if you have any questions to speakers, kindly message them to myself or my colleagues in RIAC via Facebook page, or leave the comments on the YouTube channel or Facebook. So we will definitely ask those questions, our speakers. Participants of the meeting, our great speakers today, will discuss the current state and prospects for Russia-Yemen relations, as well as security issues in the Gulf and the Red Sea areas. We will touch upon the issues of Russia-Yemen economic and political ties, as well as foreign aid to the Yemeni Republic. So we have broad agenda and great speakers, and it is an honor to have with us today His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Salem Al-WAHISHI. According to the program of the meeting, we will start with his presentation. Then there will be some reports and comments of our great speakers, RIAC experts, Vasily Kuznetsov, who is the director for Center for Arab and Islamic Studies, Institute of Oriental Studies, Sergei Serebrov, who is a senior research fellow there at the Center for Arab and Islamic Studies, Institute of Oriental Studies, and Vladimir Bartenev, who is the director of the Center for Security and Development Studies, School of World Politics at the Lomonosov Moscow State University, and senior research fellow at the mentioned already Center for Arab and Islamic Studies and the Institute of Oriental Studies. So, Your Excellency, could you kindly, as a keynote speaker, maybe open this event with the presentation? We congratulate you again with the publication of the book on Russia-Yemen relations, and maybe you could share with us some main points and share your view on the current state of relations between Russia and Yemen. So you have 20 or 30 minutes. So the floor is yours, Your Excellency, kindly.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the Russian International Affairs Council for organizing this event. As you correctly mentioned, the Oriental Institute were so kind also to have earlier an event on the booklet we had published, but we'll try to bring some new elements in today's session. Last one, we spoke a little bit about the book, but it was also because the event was at the same time of commemorating the anniversaries of the revolution, the 26th of September revolution in the north, establishing the republic, and the 14th of October revolution, which launched the struggle for the independence. This time, besides mentioning the book and the situation in Yemen, we will try to not to repeat ourselves and also touch upon issues of security in the Gulf and Red Sea, as it is mentioned in the title of the event. In the beginning, I want also to thank the MGIMO because they were so kind to translate and publish my booklet, and that was a great help. I mean, to reach to the Russian reader and also other specialists who are interested in this field. So I welcome you, and I welcome all the presence here, Russian friends. And speaking about the my country and its friendship with Yemen, which is the topic of my book. Now, today, by the way, 2 days ago, the 1st of November, is the anniversary of signing the treaty of friendship on 1st of November 1928. So we are celebrating today the 92nd anniversary, though the book was 2 years earlier was published. And we were lucky to find the Arabic text of the treaty, and also the Russian. The Arabic one was published in the Arabic version, and the Russian one was published in the Russian version of the booklet, which is a very important document. And I'm thankful to those who helped me to find this document and publish it. And there are some other annexes in the book. So as I said, now we are approaching almost a century, more than 9 decades of the friendship between our countries, Russia and Yemen. And me personally, I am a friend of Russia for half of this period, almost half of a century, since the 70s, when in the beginning of the 70s was my earliest visits to Moscow and to Russia. And the aim of the booklet is a small contribution, very modest one, to highlight on the very rich and very important Russian-Arab relations, including the Russian-Yemeni one. Of course, I mean, still a lot of work is needed for the researchers to do, I mean, to study all these aspects and put ideas of how to develop these relations. And why we had the booklet, because there is a need for such a thing. And also, I should mention, as I was referring to the document of the treaty, that we found the Arabic text of it and the Russian one. Now, many of the documents are coming up, particularly in the last few years. And that was good for all people who are specialized in this field and who do a lot of researches. In the last event with the Oriental Institute, I was referring that one of the documents which we could come through was a journalist interview with Zasokhov, who was the real acting president of the Soviet Committee for Afro-Asian Solidarity. He highlighted in this thing a lot of ideas and many others. And I was also referring to, I mean, a great friend of the Arab world, Yemen, Evgeny Promikov, he passed away, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs, head of a state, I mean, of the cabinet of the government, and also he worked in the institute. He was the director of the Oriental Institute. And many, many others. I mean, maybe we should not, I mean, I will leave it also for other colleagues, I mean, to highlight on this. Of course, the Saudis, they started earlier than Yemen in 1926, their relation with Moscow. And Moscow also took an initiative towards Yemen, that they recognized the independence of Yemen in 1926, when they got the independence from the Ottoman and then came the treaty in 1928. Some people, as I said in the last event, were asking me and wondering how, the Soviet Union at that time, for example, had a relation with some conservative countries like our country at that time. And from some of the studies, we found that, yes, at that time, maybe mostly the ideological tendency was very much influencing the foreign policy of Russia, but not totally, because while they were having all these internationalist movement conferences on an ideological basis, this is one side. There was the pragmatic side, even at that time. And I was referring to the conference of the people of the East, which was held in Baku in 1920. Also, it was Moscow was extending its hands and expressing its readiness to have relation with many of the countries in the Islamic world. And here I want to say that I think also this committee of Russia and the Islamic world, the strategic vision, the chairman of it is the president of the Republic of Tatarstan, but also the one who is running it day to day is Mr. Faridov, member of the other chamber of the cabinet of the parliament, whom I had a chance to meet him. And I think they are doing very good work, and this can bridge between both of our regions and both of our countries. And of course, now at this time, my country is at war, and there is this coup of the Houthi militia against my government, the legal government recognized internationally and recognized by Russia. But we should also, and we look with a lot of hope to a very important role of Russia as a permanent member of the Security Council in supporting the United Nations efforts to achieve peace in our country through the special envoy, Mr. Martin Griffiths. And we look even beyond that, when peace prevails, that within the economic contacts, the Russian companies could come at this stage after the peace is achieved for the reconstruction of our country. And this is not only a theoretical thing, it's a very practical issue, as I said in the previous event, because many Russian companies constructed big economic projects in Yemen, be it the port of Hodeidah, or the power station in Aden, or the road in Taiz, or dams in Tehama and Tuban, or reforming lands in Hadramaut and in fields of fishery. So they have these companies, they know the area, they know the projects, they were the one who constructed it, so they can come easily and reconstruct. And I think they can, in any bidding, have a much better chance. The book, I will not go in too much length, about speaking about it, because for sure you will have a chance to read it. And but it was covering some introduction, and then covering other aspects of the relation, the economic relations between both countries, the cultural, the social, between different societies and sectors of the societies in both countries, the cultural. And cultural is very important because thousands and even tens of thousands of Yemenis graduated from Russia, and they helped in our country, doctors, engineers, civilian ones and military ones. And this was a big thing, I mean, for a country which was illiterate. Of course, there are the legal aspects. I mean, these a lot of agreements were signed, and then there is this military cooperation. Our army, I mean, its equipment, its training was by Russia, and then there is a lot of common positions and a lot of understanding on the political level between both of our countries, including how to achieve just and lasting peace in the Middle East and solve the Palestinian problem. And then at the end of the book, I was trying to see what are the prospects of the relations between Russia and Yemen. And there is a joint commission. The last meeting of it was in 1914 in Sana'a was held, and we are expecting to have the next one hopefully here in Moscow. I met with the chair of this committee from the Russian side in his office, and we discussed how to materialize this thing. And there is many projects, also future one ahead. One of the things focusing is how to encourage the navigation between Russia and Yemen by sea, as we have a long coast, and also if there are companies who are working by shipments from the Russian side, they can help to, I mean, for the exchange of goods and projects, I mean, and between the two countries. But I will be ready to answer any question on the book later. As we said, we should not repeat ourselves and repeat the same event we had with the Oriental Institute, which I would like to thank them because some of them are here with us on organizing the previous event. This time maybe we'll focus on the security in the Gulf and the Red Sea within the relation of bilateral relation of our countries, and also with the relation of the other countries of the region. And here, if I will recall, the initiative, the recent initiative by Russia for the security concept for the Gulf area. And I want here to just, because I joined last year a meeting which was discussing this thing, which was track 2 informal, but everybody from the region was there, and not only from the region. There was some think tanks from France, UK, and US taking part in it. And I hear from time to time that what is this? Would it be another bureaucratic institute? How much is the results for this thing? And if big countries are hesitating to join, would it, I mean, harm this initiative? And I recall here that I was in the 70s and the 80s in Europe doing my postgraduate studies. And it was the time of the Cold War. And thanks to such initiative, at that time there were similar initiatives accepted by East Europe and West Europe, like the Helsinki Forum for Peace and Cooperation. And when it was initiated, some also big powers outside Europe, they did not join, thinking that it could be some bureaucratic thing and without result. But when this process of Helsinki Forum developed and started to be effective, and I was lucky because I was at that time doing my postgraduate studies in Europe, that I joined some of these meetings, and I went to Helsinki, meetings which was not at the formal level, because I didn't have at that time a formal capacity, but informal ones, I mean, between different society sectors like youth and trade unions and peace movement. And then at a later stage, big powers from outside Europe, when they felt that this mechanism was helpful, and it is the tension of the Cold War and the detente at that time, because you are young, I don't know if you remember this term at that time, prevail, they joined. I have in mind here to mention that also US joined. And recalling the Helsinki Forum and this idea of the detente at that time, the treaty to get rid of the short and medium missiles was signed in 1987. And it was a fruit of such a period of the detente. And we see today that President Putin came again a few days ago and expressed the readiness of Russia not to deploy the 19M729 missiles in Europe as a peaceful initiative. So until today, we see the results of such thing. And that's why any also initiative on the Gulf and the Red Sea in our region is highly appreciated, and we look at it with a lot of importance. And it is a chance to search for common ground between the parties in the region or with other partners in the world, as the security and peace of the Gulf and the Red Sea will influence not only the regional peace, but the world peace. And then it will have a broader global scope. And I mean, if any regional security is achieved, then it will help to build bases for development and prosperity of the countries of the region, which is under big challenges. I give you one small challenge, again, coming back to the situation in Yemen. There is a very serious environmental challenge that there are a big tanker called Safar in Hodeidah port, full of more than 1 million barrels. And because of the erosion at the sea, it might lead to a huge environmental catastrophe. So the last agreement between our legal government and the Houthis in Stockholm, among its part, is to solve this problem. And there was a special session recently of the Security Council discussing this Safar environmental challenge. Of course, I see the security in the Gulf and Red Sea, these two, I mean, seas, small seas, are linked to the Indian Ocean. And we also, our country is part of the Indian Ocean Organization, and we had a lot of meetings discussing similar issues. And maybe Sergey will remember of last year's meeting, he had me referring to the concept which was raised in the Indian Ocean, the blue economy. So also this issue of the blue economy can be brought within the concept of the Gulf and the Red Sea, which means sustainable development for those countries who are having access to these, seas. Now, speaking about how to reduce level of threats in the region, and how to find methods to promote non-violent approach to all disputes in the region can be included in this understanding to prevent international crisis, I mean, as well as regional ones in the Gulf and the Red Sea. And security, I think one of its principles is that it should be collective security. And that's why we should find a comprehensive character for security, which covers the sovereignty of the countries of the region, non-interference in the internal affairs of the countries of the region, and also, according to UN, MPT, to see the possibility of having our region as a zone free of weapons of mass destruction. And this can only be done if we have any measures of confidence building measures through transparency, through arms control, and it can be done either bilaterally or in a multilateral basis. Of course, I mean, as I was saying, some people accuse that this can be only some bureaucratic thing, and no, of course, we want to institutionalize any initiative on peace and security in the Gulf and the Red Sea, and not to jump to organizations and any bureaucratic thing. It can be done step by step. And I remember in our last year discussion on this initiative from the Russian side, with many others who participated in it, the maritime security is very important, because in that part, a lot of economic vessels carrying goods and oil are passing in that part, be it the Hormuz Strait or the Bab el-Mandab. So maritime security is important. As I was mentioning, this blue economy of the countries there, I mean, I have in mind the sustainable development matters, and the verification on issues of military buildup. I see that maybe I approached the I mean, to exhaust the time located for me, and as dialogue is better than monologue, I would be looking forward for interacting with our Russian friends, and then some of the subjects I did not cover, I will come back to it at a later stage. Thank you very much, and I would like to thank once more the Russian International Affairs Council for organizing this event.
Thank you, Ambassador. Your Excellency, you mentioned, you mentioned the issue of security and collective security. Now, this is something that we do in Russia in multiple universities and institutional centers, as well as here in RIAC. We had even our project is named as Security System in the Middle East. So practically, I would like to again thank you for your comprehensive way of analyzing the current situation with the security issues in the Gulf area, but also beyond in the Middle East. Thank you for mentioning the Helsinki process, because this treaty on short and medium missiles you mentioned in Russian is the same as Russian International Affairs Council's name in short, because we have RSMD, so this is practically the same. And we always like to say something about that. But you raised many questions. I think that our experts could also elaborate on them. I would like to first ask Vasily Kuznetsov, Dr. Kuznetsov, to join this discussion. And how do you see, if I may, this question in in continuing the issues of security in the Gulf area and the Red Sea region. How do you see the Russian initiative? Do you agree with the ambassador's point that, even if we take Helsinki Forum as a model, that you can start the process and then big powers could join? Do you think that this progress could be made in the Middle East or in the Gulf area in general? So this is it. Dr. Kuznetsov, could you join us?
Yes, thank you, Ruslan. Do you hear me?
Yes, definitely.
I will ask you a question, but first of all, I would like to congratulate one more time. I would like to congratulate Dr. Al-WAHISHI with a great book. I think that it is very important. This publication is very important, not only for your side, but for Russia too. It is because Yemen and the Russian-Yemeni relations, they are not they don't only have a big long history, but also they are very important for Russian Arabist community. That a lot of our brilliant experts on the Arab world, a very important part of their lives were linked with Yemen. They like Vitaly Naumkin, Mikhail Petrovsky, Konstantin Truevtsev, and many others. Sergei Serebrov, of course, and many others. And we shouldn't forget that Russia is maybe one of it is not only just a history. We work in Yemen academically through all these years. Even in the situation of violent conflict in Yemen, we work there. We have our expedition in Socotra, and so on. So I think that this book is very important for us. Now, answering your question, Ruslan. Yes, now 1 year ago, Russian foreign minister published our concept of this security system in Gulf area. Then we organized several events, and now the last event was in the United Nations Security Council last week, where Russia presented this concept, and they discussed and so on. Unfortunately, this year we don't have a big progress in the realization of the regional security in the Gulf. We shouldn't. We should mention that Russian concept is not the unique one. We have several other concepts. We have several different approaches. I would say that we have 4 or 5 main approaches. The Russian approach is the comprehensive approach we think of using the Helsinki experience and so on. There are other ideas. There is an American idea of that the security system could be built on the basis of isolation of Iran. There is another idea that the security system could be built on the bilateral rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The third is that it could be built on the several bilateral tracks. And I would say that there is another one that it could be built on the positive experience of the resolution of some of K sub-regional problems. For example, if we would have a good experience of international cooperation, collaboration on the to resolve the Yemen conflict, for example, it could be create a basis for this new security system, because Yemen is it may play the key role in the process of the building of new security system, not because of the fact that it is the one of the most dramatic conflicts in the region and all over the world, but also because of the fact that Yemen geographically it is a bridge between two sub-regional systems, Gulf area and Red Sea system. So it can play the key role here. I think that talking about the idea that Helsinki process could be started without some key global actors who can join the process after, theoretically, yes, theoretically, but in practice, I really don't know how it could be done in the situation when we have a huge American military assistance in the Gulf area, when China is one of the most important economic partners for the Gulf area states. And sure, I don't understand how it can be done without some external and neutral mediation, some broker who can mediate the process, like Russia, for example. So I think that the participation of global actors is needed, and it is important. And I think that not that the regional actors themselves, they wouldn't be agree with not all of them would be agree with the building of a security system without some global actors. It is an Iranian position. From the beginning, the Iranian position was that it is a regional security system, not global security system. So regional security system, it is a problem. It is an issue for regional actors. But for United Arab Emirates, for Bahrain, even for Qatar, it is not the issue. Unfortunately, the dynamics of regional process depends a lot on the dynamics of internal American political process for the moment. We'll see how the new American administration will be deal with the Middle East issues. I think that there will be some changes. It's obvious. With Trump, with Biden, or with with Trump or with Biden. But we'll have a very short time, to resolve the regional, the problem of regional security system. With such American with this or that with one or another American administration. I think that multilateral and comprehensive approach could be most workable, but it should be but to make the process more doable, we should work on some concrete issues. Maybe the ecological problem, maybe some humanitarian problems, especially in Yemen. maritime security. I think these 3 points could be most productive for the cooperation. But the cooperation, of course, should be multilateral with the participation of global actors. I will stop here. I think we'll have time to discuss.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, definitely we will continue this discussion. I think that it is interesting how we go towards the common base for the region and in discussing the security and regional security system. And the main factor here is, as far as I understand from what Ambassador said earlier and Dr. Kuznetsov, is that we should look at the issue of ecology, environment, humanitarian, etc. So from here comes the question, if I may address it to Dr. Sergei Serebrov, who is the one of the main Russia's experts on Yemen and the security as well in the region. So, Dr. Serebrov, if you could answer the next question, do you think that the environment or environmental challenges, ecological challenges, could be a base for a future security system in the region? And how, if I may, because we had the policy brief some years ago in RIAC, which was offered by Dr. Serebrov, how do you think the future prospects for the Russia-Yemen relations and the Yemen conflict resolution? This is, very huge and wide range of questions, but still, Dr. Serebrov, if you could comment on that, we would be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to RIAC Manager and the Excellency, the Ambassador, Dr. Ahmed Al-WAHISHI, for your initiative to organize this conference in such an important moment for Yemen history, I mean. I will then comment why it is very important. And I also very thankful to Dr. Ahmed Al-WAHISHI that he mentioned our great Arabist and Orientalist Evgeny Primakov, who was the director of the Institute of Oriental Studies, because a few days ago there was a memorial date of this great person. And I remember also that in 1965, academician Primakov then was a young man. He was in Yemen, and he was looking forward to attend the Hamir conference, which was the turning point in the course of the civil war in Yemen. And after that Hamir conference, there was a turn to peace settlement of this civil war. Why? Because Yemenis were allowed to negotiate the peace deal between themselves in the countries devastated by the conflict. This is precisely what is needed now, I guess. So the situation in 1965 and in 2020 is very, very similar in this sense. Well, I guess that the core point of all these issues, ecological, geopolitical, political, military, etc., related to the security issues in the Gulf and the Red Sea, all of them are now bound together in one question: how to achieve peace in Yemen. And if you allow me, I will more comment on this issue because this is a very very actual point of the cooperation between Yemen and Russia, and Mr. Ambassador was keen to mention that Russia was very supportive to all the UN initiatives and all the missions in Yemen, aiming to restore peace in this country. So I will read my paper, and then probably I will comment the further answering your questions. So the war in Yemen is very unusual in a way, because it is self-exhaustive, leading to nowhere. You may observe that despite all the devastating effect which war caused for Yemen population, the people are still very stick to their history and to the symbolic things of their history, and they're demonstrating their identity everywhere and all the time of this conflict. There are still strong political barriers between confronting Yemeni parties, different feelings of what is good and what is wrong for their future, but all of them are ready to talk now. The war resulted in stigmatization of opponent parties with excessive and unjust allegations. I'm quite confident that when military phase will be finished, all these barriers will melt down very quickly. Now, at the time of our seminar, we can observe very clear signs of relief in Yemen. First, recently we got a massive exchange of war prisoners based on the Geneva Agreement, and which was reached in September, and now it is implemented. More than 1,000 men returned to their families, and this process will hopefully continue. Then there is an attempt to find political solution in the South issues to avoid further skirmishes within the flanks inside Arab coalition. And there is, of course, growing women and civil society activity wishing to be involved in the peace process, and they can contribute greatly in case of Yemen. Today, Yemen has more than one center of power and more than one government, but only one is recognized internationally. It is internationally recognized President Hadi. And internationally recognized President, IRP, is bound with certain adopted by UN Security Council resolutions and principles which should be respected. There is no doubt about that. But also, IRP is a sovereign body which can take decisions, and these decisions also should be respected. That is why there is wide consensus among experts about the crucial importance to maintain the leading role of IRP in political process in Yemen. The international community now is more than ever before dedicated to speed up peace settlement as first priority in Yemen. We hope that IRP will take a pivotal role in this process and finally will lead the Yemeni people on the safe shore and will improve its own stance in Yemen. It is also very important from the perspective of improving security and stability in the whole region. And here I wish to touch very delicate points regarding UN peace missions in Yemen, aiming to focus on possible alternatives for improving its practical outcome. I will argue that Resolution 2216 is no longer matching to serve as a peace-oriented document. It was a taboo imposed on changing anything in this resolution, but this taboo is also diminishing right now. More and more analytics say and favor different approaches, and the situation on grounds actually also has dramatically changed compared to what was in April 2015, when the war started. The delicacy of this matter is linked precisely to the question of maintaining the key role of IRP in the settlement process, because unfortunately it is widely and wrongly perceived that any change in this resolution will inevitably harm the position of IRP. I am confident in opposite equation. Without any resolution, without new resolution, the role of IRP might shrink completely. I will take some experts and study the result of UN missions in Yemen since May 2015 in respect of influence on the IRP stance in Yemen. What happened in Kuwait? There were much hope in June and July 2016 that the talks in Kuwait will finish successfully because the two sides worked out a comprehensive ground for settlement. They agreed to form the integrated government, to pass all the heavy weapons to authority, and then after transitional period to start a preparation for elections. What happened then? In August 2016, the talks suddenly collapsed because the platform, which was coordinated by these parties, did not match to the resolution 2216. So the agreements between Yemeni parties promising sustainable peace process were found inconsistent to the vision expressed in this resolution drafted by Britain. In parallel, the Kuwait round marked the beginning of practice of selective reading of text of this resolution. One of this item of this resolution read that that it is very important for soonest ending of fighting in Yemen and immediate return back to interrupted political transitional process. But time went on and nothing changed. So the ambiguity of this resolution was one of the reasons why I think it should be amended. The failure in Kuwait talks brought to life the government in Sana'a. The government in Sana'a was made by two sides, by Houthis and by General People Congress. And it was not good for internationally recognized president at all. After Kuwait, UN aborted completely the idea of reaching comprehensive peace in Yemen. And since then, all the missions were dedicated only to local, to humanitarian issues and not reaching the comprehensive peace. So what we find as a result of all these activities? In Stockholm, 2018, there were documents signed by both parties, but they were not implemented. And the situation in Hodeidah 2 years later is the same, much the same as it was 2 years ago. It is very fragile. Well, last year, 2019, the scheme of the conflict dramatically changed. It was a surprising year in all the means of this word, because it ruined all the concept, the very concept of this conflict. The battlefield shifted from the Houthi area to the south within the flanks of Arab coalition. And till now, there is a very big military strain in the south between the two parties. I will not go deeper in that, but RIAC agreements, the feasibility of RIAC agreements is still under question. Now, what was the aim of main goal of UN mission this year, 2020? It was concentrated on the situation in Mari, because the offensive launched by Sana threatened to the last stronghold of IRP in the north. So there are much problems to achieve any solution in this matter without comprehensive peace settlement. So the bad thing of all these results of UN missions was that IRP was steadily declining its influence inside Yemen, unfortunately. And this is why I'm quite sure that without changing the resolution 2216, there is no guarantee that IRP will be an important player in the future, and this is very bad for the peace process. So I think that there is a field for cooperation, not only between Russia and Yemen, but between Russia and the European community and other parties with goodwill who aim to put the problem of peace settlement in Yemen as a main priority in this question and in this region. I think that there is a wide field for cooperation with internationally recognized president as well. I just want to remind my colleagues that COVID-19 brought new challenges to humanitarian disaster in Yemen. So you know that 24 million, it's 80% of population, needs international help. This year, instead of $2.4 billion needed for their salvation, they managed to gather only 1.3 billion. It means that half of them are at the brink of very dramatic worsening of their humanitarian situation. Well, this is why I think that the peace in Yemen is the absolute priority right now.
Dr. Serebrov, if I may, 1 minute.
Okay. So I just want to finish my presentation or my speech with recalling the fact that the only benefit side in this conflict are radicals, and it is very important also for security discussion. If the war will continue, there is a high risk that radicals in the south will come to the ruling position in some locations, like it was in 2015 and 2016. So this is why I call everybody and my colleagues and Dr. Ahmed Al-WAHISHI to call more conferences to discuss this important matter, because we urgently need the new grounds, the alternative to resolution 2216, in order to promote peace in Yemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Serebrov. I would like to also give the floor to the next speaker, Dr. Vladimir Bartenev. Dr. Bartenev, earlier, Vasily Kuznetsov and Dr. Serebrov mentioned that international cooperation is needed, that the UN process is important, that the security could be done mostly only via international cooperation between not only the regional states but also external actors. Dr. Zerebrov even mentioned the amount of sums for humanitarian aid to Yemen, and I know that you work quite closely on the humanitarian aid issues in the Middle East and North Africa. So could you kindly share with us your view on the aid issues, international aid to Yemen, and how is it assessed from Russia? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ruslan. I hope that you can hear me, and thank you for the invitation. And first of all, I would like to congratulate His Excellency with his new book, and hopefully I will be able to read it soon. My topic, yes, was organized to talk about aid to Yemen and the Russian position. And my presentation will be organized basically in three parts. In the first one, I will outline the typology of risks associated with external assistance, which I developed for RIAC in the report that hopefully will be published by the end of the year. And then I will illustrate the risks with the case of Yemen. And finally, I will touch upon the Russian approach of providing assistance to Yemen. So basically, I see, based on my experience, I divide all the risks related to aid provision into main three clusters. First one is underlying, what I call underlying risks, risks that determine external assistance. We talk here about indigenous security, governance, development, humanitarian risks within the recipient country. On the other hand, there are many external, exogenous risks, basically risks to donors, national strategic and economic interests, political ones as well. It can be in a recipient country or in a wider region. The second cluster is impeding risks, risks that hinder provision of external assistance. It can be security risks to aid workers, corruption, lack of humanitarian access, aid volatility, or international sanctions, be they primary or secondary extraterritorial ones. And the final cluster, the third one, is accompanying risks, risks that external assistance basically exacerbates or produces. And here we can talk about deterioration of governance, fueling conflict, amassing external debt, or increased interstate competition. And actually, the situation in Yemen, I think, perfectly illustrates each of these three types of risks. Dr. Zerebrov started upon bringing some numbers that are really striking, and you can see them on the slide. Definitely, Yemen is the worst humanitarian crisis. Many people displaced, many people require assistance, almost 80% of population actually, and the COVID-19 pandemic made things worse. And it's not only through the threat of proliferation of pandemic itself, but also through the drop in remittances from the Gulf, which is consists 13% of the country GDP. So basically, the most important figure here is that already almost 19 billion of economic output was lost, according to the UNDP estimates, and almost twice as much will be lost until 2022 if conflict continues. These figures we have to keep in mind when we talk about who helps Yemen, how much they give. So basically, if we talk about the amount of aid between 2011 and 2018, the last year on which the statistics are available, ODA to Yemen increased tenfold from 800 million to 8 billion. In this decade, Yemen received almost $20 billion, is in the three top recipients in MENA after Syria and Egypt. You can see it here. So these figures not even include the assistance provided by countries which do not report their assistance to the OECD, such as China, such as other developing countries, Iran as well. It gives its assistance to Houthis, but definitely it's not mentioned anywhere in official statistics. This explains very high dependence of Yemen on ODA. You can see it here in the table in the right corner, which is basically with the aid dependency about $280 per capita. Yemen is the number 3 in the world among countries with a population of more than 1 million. The bulk of aid going to Yemen is actually humanitarian. And this is striking because now the community providing these billions of aid, it does not provide enough for the long-term development. The only thing going to Yemen, almost the bulk of it is purely humanitarian. And there is a chronic underfunding, as we can see. The COVID-19 pandemic has limited donors' capacities. And the figure that Dr. Serebrov mentioned, yes, as of late October, only 42% of the Yemen humanitarian response appeal here is funded. It's an extremely low number, all-time low. And the outlook in this respect, given the current state of affairs, is quite gloomy. So the underlying risks are really huge. So what about impeding risks? The risks that hinder external assistance. First risk is security, as I said. According to Aid Worker Security Database, Yemen is the second, the most dangerous country in the MENA for humanitarian workers after Syria. Only in 2019, humanitarian workers were attacked 11 times. It's big. Second risk is corruption. It's no coincidence that Yemen became the arena for one of the biggest aid scandals in the UN system during the last years. It involved the head of the World Health Organization in the country, Nevio Zagaria. As many media reported, unqualified people were placed in high-paying jobs, millions of dollars deposited in staffers' personal bank accounts, etc., etc. The UN, despite the activists' campaign, did not provide enough information of where the money was spent and how. Third risk is lack of humanitarian access, and it's enormous. The last report of the UN panel of experts on Yemen mentioned the following risks: arrests, intimidations of humanitarian workers, illegal seizures of the personal property of humanitarian workers, non-respect for the independence of humanitarian organizations, and also important proposal for aid groups to pay a 2% tax on each aid and development project to finance Houthi Supreme Council for Management and Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and International Cooperations. The latter proposal was dropped given the pressure from the UN, and the humanitarian access still improved but remains a big problem. The fourth risk, impeding risk, is aid volatility. It stems both from changes in economic environment due to COVID pandemic as well, and the attempts of certain governments to withhold aid. For example, the United States suspended most funding allocated for northern Yemen in order to leverage greater humanitarian access. So the third group of risks are accompanying risks. Risks produced by external assistance. There are many as well. First risk is impact on governance. Large packages of program assistance provided to the government of Yemen by Saudi Arabia and United Emirates help this government survive, that's for sure. But they also harm its long-term governance prospects because it creates a sort of resource curse. This applies not only to budget support, but to humanitarian aid as well. The government clearly will not fulfill its functions of providing basic service protection and physical security to population without external assistance. We have also to talk about aid diversion. We have to take into account the factor of aid fungibility. Basically, the government that receives aid can spend the same amount of money provided by donors to buy arms because it has new money to do that. Aid is also diverted by both sides in the conflict, and we have seen the many reports about that. Finally, third risk is exacerbation of regional tensions. Saudi Arabia and United Emirates see the assistance for Houthis provided by Iran as a threat to their national interests. And Iran sees the coalition support for Hadi government in the same manner. It also fuels conflict and makes it more protracted. So what about Russia? My final block, my final section. As opposed to some other non-Western countries, such as China and Iran, Russia reports its official development assistance to the OECD. But these figures are quite fragmentary. They do not cover all types of assistance, and we have to keep that in mind. What is reflected in official statistics? Basically, multilateral aid, about 2 million a year through World Food Program during the last years. And this contribution was doubled in the current year, which is very welcome development, but obviously is not enough to satisfy all the requirements. Even Sweden provides 10 times more than Russia in terms of multilateral aid through UN system. But bilaterally, Russia also provides some tons of emergency food aid since 2012 through EMERCOM. It's important. It was very welcomed by the Yemeni side. What is not reflected in official statistics are scholarships, and His Excellency mentioned the number of Yemeni graduates out the years from Russia. This tradition continues, and contribution is about funding stipends for about 1,000 Yemeni students. There were also some aid to Yemeni refugees, but the number of them was not that high. And finally, aid by Russian NGOs, and we should mention Russian humanitarian mission that provided such funds, mobilized also through private donations, which is very important for bilateral ties. So can Russia increase its aid to Yemen substantially? Clearly not. Even Russian ODA for Syria, official ODA, right now is about $30 million. There are many other pressing challenges in the post-Soviet space, as we can see, and requiring some sort of assistance from Russia. So therefore, Russian contribution should be more political and diplomatic. And its approach, Russia's approach, can be risk-based, and just several final considerations. I think first priority is to work towards this minimizing impeding risks that make assistance to Yemen less effective right now. This includes ensuring greater transparency of aid distribution, larger humanitarian access, countering practices of withholding aid for political processes that we can see in the US case. Another priority is to minimize accompanying risks by pushing conflict-sensitive approaches to providing humanitarian assistance in Yemen. But definitely a priority number one right now is to minimize underlying risks. So basically working towards complete ceasefire and political settlement. Conflict prevention is always cheaper than conflict resolution. But the current situation in Yemen, the opposite is also true. Investing time and effort in ending an ongoing conflict will be a smarter investment than pouring billions and billions in the country only to see that the next month, next quarter, next year, the country will need twice as much. So political settlement is a key to solving the problems with humanitarian aid as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Bartenev. I think that we've covered much issues and questions, and we have some questions coming from those who are watching us online. So I would like to maybe, ask. I think that the time is running out, and I think that we will have only opportunity for. We will give the floor to Ambassador Al-WAHISHI to maybe answer one of the questions and conclude this event if possible. Dr. Al-WAHISHI, we have a question which is quite connected to the last two presentations of our experts. This is about, it's quite connected to the discussion we had today, actually, in general. The question is about, do you think that mutual trade and investment can replace military buildup in the Red Sea and the Gulf as the main deterrent or prevention of the conflicts? And if so, how soon? So I think that the question about the prospects for future security, and if economic ties, economic cooperation could replace this military approach of a number of external players, but also regional ones. And here I remember, I read your book, and I remember you mentioned economic projects, and you mentioned that Russia could invest and could support economic projects Russia had previously in Yemen. So how could you put all this in context, and how do you see this situation in general? Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to be brief, as you said. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. I will try to be brief, as we already, I think, approaching the end of our deliberation. To your question, it is always, when there are hotbeds and tension, the equation between peace and cooperation is there. And answering your question, yes, if there is mutual interest and it is increasing, and how it will increase through economical, cultural, social ties, including business and economic benefit for all, be it in Russia or the region or other parts of the world, then it will help, because people then will see the benefit of these mutual things which are benefiting them in development and in economy, and prioritize them rather than conflict, which is destructive and threatening and having damage to the welfare, let's say, of the people of the region and worldwide. I want also to, I hope I answered very briefly, so I'm optimist on answering your question. Referring to the three last speakers, I want just to make very brief comments in one sentence each. Vladimir, thank you very much for your presentation, the PowerPoint. I hope I will get a copy of it later, because I want to study it more, because it's great. And thank you very much for it. And here I want to once more thank all the assistance, humanitarian one, by Russia to our people. The Ministry of Emergency are doing their contribution, as you mentioned. Also, the last donors conference by the UN, Mr. Vasily, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, spoke, and he declared the 4 million assistance for the UN. As you said, it goes mostly to the World Food Program. So we are thankful to this. And for the the very important intervention made by Sergey, I agree with him on many things, and we differ on some other ones, but it is always interesting when I talk with him and exchange opinions. I have some small remarks. The conflict, when it takes place in Yemen and in anywhere in the world, it makes a security vacuum. And then the extremists capitalize on this security vacuum. And this is in all Yemen. I don't agree with you that you are limiting it to one part or the other of Yemen. The terrorists and other extremists and all involved in violence, they find safe haven and in capitalizing on the vacuum made because of the conflicts. So I don't agree with you when you limit it to one part. And there is a discussion in many forums in the world how much the Houthis are involved in such terrorist acts. But discussion is still going on, and we will follow all together and see. Now, referring to the international legitimacy and UN resolutions on Yemen, including the resolutions on the recent ones on Yemen, you were referring to 2216, and you mentioned your remarks on it. In these recent UN resolutions, besides this, important that we base ourselves on international law and international legitimacy. Whether Sergei will like it or not, this is up to him. But these resolutions also, they base themselves on some references, not only the international legitimacy resolutions, but also the national dialogue which was held, and all forces practically were there, and they agreed on a federal system, like Russia is a federal system, as a solution, so that not one part will dominate on other parts. And even the Houthis, they were part of this national dialogue. So this is one reference which was one of the pillars of the UN Security Council Resolution 2216. I don't know if you want to change that. This is not your right. It is the right of the people, all parties who were participating in the national dialogue. And coming to Vasily, thanks also to your contribution. And on the security matters, I don't say that, it can only be in the hand of the countries of the region and exclude the international players. No, some international players like Russia, which is making the initiative of this concept on Gulf security, can also join, but others who are not joining, they might join at a later stage. And then, not only this, what I mean, for example, I want to refer, one of the main concerns in the security in the Gulf is the issue of the plastic missiles. The militia got some of these missiles, and they are not only threatening Yemen, but its neighbors. And for us in Yemen, we don't have borders with Iran. We have borders with Saudi Arabia and Oman. And we are part of the Arab Peninsula. So we are concerned with them more. And then we see also the national security of all the Arab countries, because we are committed to agreements and conventions which was signed by the Arab League for national defense treaty. And then this is the legitimate side of it, that Saudi Arabia and Emirates, they came to help our legal government. And you remember when I was in the last meeting, we were discussing this security, the Gulf security concept. I raised to the Hague Code of Conduct. And I said, who is in the Middle East having missiles more effective and longer and bigger and reach a longer range than the 5 permanent members of the Security Council? None. And who is, I mean, having even more than some countries which are in Asia, because Gulf and Red Sea is part of Asia, West Asia it is. Who has more than India? And still the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, including Russia, they joined Hague Code of Conduct on spontaneous and voluntary agreement to limit the threat of plastic missiles. And India also joined, and more than 130 countries joined. And then I said, other countries, why they are hesitating in the region to, and I put that question at that time. So, I mean, until all players internationally and regionally will join this concept of the Gulf security and Red Sea, some from the region and outside the region, and also some conventions or code of conducts elaborated by the UN can facilitate. And I agree with you that maybe we can take some aspects like the environmental, ecological issues, humanitarian ones in the case of Yemen, because I mean, this Safar tanker, I mean, it's an environmental challenge which can harm not only the waters of Yemen, but the international waters in the Red Sea and the navigation. So I stop at this level, and I hope I made my point clear on some of the contributions from our Russian friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It was quite a great discussion we had today. I'm really sorry that we cannot continue it because of the program, while as I see that we have, all of us have some new thoughts and we want to exchange the views, but I think that we could do it somewhere next time and prepare some new event. We could discuss it together with our partners from the Institute of Oriental Studies. You know, I would like to again thank the Yemeni embassy in Moscow to co-organize this meeting, as well as I would like to additionally thank His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Salem Al-WAHISHI. So thank for all of our speakers. We had with us Vladimir Bartenev, Vasily Kuznetsov, and Dr. Sergei Serebrov. So thank you very much. I think that we've covered many questions. We have, you know, raised even more questions, but these questions will be addressed and asked next time. Again, I would like to congratulate all of us with the successful event, and hope to see you in our new events and and please follow our website. We have new publications and new events. So thank you. We'll stop here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.